Go. All right, guys, today what we're going to be doing is dealing with this kind of a problem. So I did a video a few years ago when you have this problem where the transmission comes off of the wiper motor and leaves the wiper either on the driver's side or the passenger side in this kind of an inoperative state, how you can open up and put the linkage back on. That'll work a few times, but at some point you've just got to bite the bullet and replace the wiper transmission, and that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to start with removing both of these wiper arms. Some of this stuff is kind of routine. You're going to come down here. There's a small clip. I like to use a large flathead screwdriver for this particular job. You want to pull this out. You're going to lift up on the arm a little bit so that it comes out all the way. And then we're going to try to pull it off. Depending on how long it's been since it's been off, it can be on there pretty good. We can't really use anything metal to pry with, but something plastic can sometimes get it off. Now this one hasn't been off that long because it was replaced maybe 7-8 months ago. It can be on there really bad. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll come back over here and we'll start removing this plastic trim. Guys, so passenger side, same deal with our flathead screwdriver. We're going to work this little clip out here. Like I saw on the driver's side, it helps to lift the arm up a little bit to get it all the way out. Now, this one has not been off in a while, so it might be more of a fight. All right, so that's off now. So let's go ahead and take off the plastic outside trim. Right, guys, Phillips screwdriver. Both the driver and the passenger side will have one of these screws, and these screws can be stripped at this age of these vehicles. Wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. It's not stripped on this one, though. Make sure you keep your wiper arms organized because the passenger and the driver's side one are not the same. I thought I had it out all the way. All right, so once that screw is out, this guy just has a tab right here that fits in there, and he has a tab that fits in there. So just push this back to get the back tab off and then lift off. If you didn't catch it, I'll go do the passenger side. You can maybe catch what I did on that one. And again, these are different for the driver and passenger side, so keep them organized. Okay, guys, passenger side now, same deal. Going to work this Phillips screw out. Helps to lift up on it. If it is kind of old, sometimes you get these guys where they're semi-stripped on you. Okay, so once this is out, same kind of deal as we did last time. Squeeze in the back so you can get this tab out and then lift that tab out. All right, so at this point, we'll stay on this side for a moment. We got another screw right here. Now you'll notice this one, I've got black silicone sealant on it because at this age of these vehicles, this is a primary leak area past this screw and into the interior. So when we put these back on, we're going to reseal them with ultra black. We'll show that near the end, but for right now, let's just remove this screw here. And then we've got another one just like it on the driver's side. Guys, the driver's side one now, same deal. Also silicone to prevent water intrusion leaks. Pull this guy out. Okay, that's the last of the outers. All right, guys, so from the edge screw that we took in, we're on the passenger side, just going to fold in, and we're going to take off this recessed screw here. It's another Phillips, and then going on past the first wiper arm for the passengers, or the wiper arm for the passengers rather, there's another one right here. So we're just going to go in and remove these two, and then we'll come back and pick it up as we do the recessed screws on the driver's side. All right, guys, so from the driver's side, coming in from the edge, we've got a recessed screw here, and we've got a recessed screw here. So I like to just leave them in the plastic after they're all the way loosened. That way they don't get lost. All right, so I just pull it up, make sure that they're off, and then I leave them in there. So we're going to loosen this one, and then we're going to pull the hood up. All right, guys, once you get the hood up, you're going to have one more on either end. This particular guy's cracked. I keep forgetting to pick up a new piece of this black plastic that we're taking off from the salvage yard when I'm there. You need to have a shorty Phillips to get this one. And again, like I said, this guy has got the black RTV on him because these areas are prone to leaking when the vehicles get this old. I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning of the video, but this is a 1998 Cheyenne with the 5.7 liter V8. All right, so with this guy, this whole end here is freed up. We're going to go take the same outer bolt off the other side, and then we'll be ready to lift this whole thing off and out of the way. All right, guys, then this is the one on the passenger side. This one you'll see has the most RTV. I'm going to have to block your view for just a moment to bite into the screw here. But yeah, these are all prone to water intrusion at this age on these GMT 400 body styles. All right, so with that out, this guy's all there. Another tool to have handy is a vacuum cleaner because you're going to probably have all kinds of leaves and everything else under here. But now we can kind of work this guy free and make sure that all of our other screws are out of the way. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to go pop our lead on our hood light just to give us some more slack. All right, so just keeping the camera in this position. Just going to want to work this off of the wiper arm attachment. Slide it under the hood on this side and then pull towards you're on the driver's side, so you pull towards you. She's just hung up a little bit on that side, so let me just walk over and unhang her up. If we pan the camera over here, you can see sometimes it can get hung up by the hood hinge. Yeah. Sometimes the easiest jobs, guys, the easiest jobs go haywire. All right, so we got it unhung off of that. Now you can see we've got enough slack. And now this way we don't have to mess around with very old and weak washer fluid lines or nipples that would break off if we touched them. All right, so let's move back over to the driver's side and we can see what the transmission looks like. All right, guys, now we need to just move this piece here off a little bit more. So we're going to slide it forward so that we can clear the hood hinge. Again, you want to be very gentle with this kind of old plastic because she will crack on you. And now with it out of the way here, we got clear accessibility to where we need to be, which is primarily here, right? So under here, this is your wiper motor. And then the wiper motor extends through the firewall. And when we close the hood out of the way and come on the other side, we'll see where all these transmissions hook up there. All right, guys, I actually have to move this just a little bit more. So I'm just going to clear this hood light out of the way so I can get it right there. Now I can close the hood sufficiently enough to get under here, and we'll just use a small block of wood to keep it coming down all the way. The other thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need a 10mm socket because we're going to need to be able to remove these 3 retaining bolts on both sides, on the driver's side here and similarly on the passenger side. So get yourself a 10mm socket and have it handy. All right, guys, actually this turns out to be an 11mm, surprisingly enough. You can see here we've got our little block of wood holding our hood secure. We got one on both sides. And now what we're going to end up showing is where this broke off, right? So you can see here is we had this little guy zip tied on here at one point, and that's it. That's all she wrote. She's done, so we're going to have to replace her. So we're going to take these 11s out here in order to extract this guy. It's a really straightforward repair. Phillips screwdriver, a couple of different lengths. 10mm socket, an 11mm socket. That's all you really need to do this repair. Once we get these 2 bolts out, this guy will slide right out, and I'll show you the replacement part. We'll show the prep and the alignment, and that'll be it. One more. For this last one, I think I'm going to stick a little wobble socket on here, just because of the angle that we are at. Using 1/4 inch hardware here, by the way. Okay, got the torque off that bolt, just trying to get it to let go enough for us to finger turn it. Also trying not to put any more scratches on the hood. Hope to repaint it this spring finally. All right, all of these out. Now this guy just comes through. Just going to push him through. I'm going to grab him from behind. And then I'm going to bring him out through this access panel. And that's our driver's side transmission. So what happens here is this over time gets all worn out inside the metal. And eventually it can't hold on to the stud that we see attached down here to on the wiper motor. So we can see the passenger side is still attached, but the stud right here, this is what that clamps onto. There's another stud that the passenger side is clamped onto. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the passenger side one as well, because it has jumped in the past, and while we're in here, we're just going to get rid of all of this old hardware and replace it with new. So we can loosen these two 10mm adjusting bolt nuts up. As soon as it looks like it's loose enough to slide off of the stud, a little bit more, then we can go take the 311s off the other end and take this one out just like we did the driver's side. I think we're at that point now. Yes, we are at that point now. Okay. So now we'll take those 311s off the other side. All right, guys, last one here, and then we'll show pulling this guy out as well. In fact, I think I can ditch the wobble at this stage. And again, these are 11mm bolts. It's going to drop through just like the driver's side did. And then, presuming that we did get those studs off enough, we should be able to... I can't reach over across the hood here. Let me see if I can get it like this. Trying to set it up for the camera and did not leave it well positioned for me. All right, I'm going to have to come over back to the other side, fish it through there. Yeah, that's what I thought. She wants to come off a little bit more on those nuts. Get my wrench, switch to a 10mm socket. Put a longer extension on here. You can see this guy was on pretty good. I know some people in the comments are going to say, why don't you just leave it on? It's like, well, we're already in here. Why not? It's over 98 to 2000, it's now 2022 here on January 1st, so this is quite old and should be replaced. All right, so we'll just hold the camera in this position. I'll show you the part numbers of what we're replacing it with. The first number we're going to be using is this GM 157-83973. Always use genuine GM here. None of this aftermarket scrap metal garbage. Never fits correctly anyway. And these are still produced by General Motors. So we can see here, we've got brand new, pre-lubricated, and you got copper types of bushings that sit in here. So the top steel retainer, and you've got these two copper pieces that are actually going to grab onto the stud on the windshield wiper motor. You know, if they made a new crank arm on the wiper motor, this guy here, just held on by this nut, I personally would replace this as well, but they never did service this. In order to get a new stud and crank arm on these GMT 400s, you have to buy a whole new wiper motor. So we're just going to clean this up before we reinstall these, and then we're going to just, you know, hope that that is okay for the fact that GM does not make a separately serviceable one. The other side is going to be, if I can get it up here where you guys can see it, a 124-63067. In some cases, these numbers may have been superseded down the years. Okay, he's wedged in the box. We'll kick him from the other side. It's odd that he's wedged in the box like that. Now this being the driver's side, you can see it just has the two copper pieces, or probably copper plated pieces, I'm guessing. But new nuts and new lock washers. New transmission piece. All right, so we're going to clean up inside. We're going to vacuum up leaves and pine needles and whatnot that are in here before we put it all back together. We don't need to grease up the passenger side because it was pre-lubricated. For some reason, the driver's side is not, so we're going to put a little bit of wheel bearing grease in there, which is what the shop manual suggests. Let me show you also the page out of the shop manual. We're going to take a look at the 98 GM service manual, and we're going to take a look at what it says about this procedure that we're doing. We've already removed the wiper arms, the air inlet grill panel. That's that big long black piece. We've loosened the nuts on the drive link brackets to the motor crank arm, and we've removed the brackets from the wiper motor crank arm. We've removed the transmission to cowl bolts, and we've removed the transmission assembly from the vehicle. Then they talk about when you do the installation. By the way, they said note the position of the right and left transmission links for reassembly. I'll show you what that means here in just a minute. In the installation procedure, we're going to go basically install the two transmissions, reattach those 11mm bolts, and secure them to 62 inch-pounds. After they are both attached and sitting loosely on the crank arm of the wiper motor, then we're going to go, they don't say it here, but you're going to adjust the alignment of the wiper arms, and then you're going to tighten down the nuts and lock washers that hold them onto the crank arm to 44 inch-pounds. And here's a little graphic of what's going on there. Right, so what do they mean when they say note the position of the right and left transmission links? Well, the easiest answer to that is we're going to go take a look at the imprint that's left from the original lock nuts. So if I hold out our new passenger side transmission and I go grab our old passenger side transmission, we can see where the imprints have been left from the old lock nuts. And so we know that the relative alignment position is like that. And so that's how we'll start this new one out. We'll start it off, we'll put it down, we won't torque it, we'll snug it down into the same position that the old one was roughly, and then we'll put the wiper arm back on and we'll check the alignment before we torque it down. We'll do the same thing for the driver's side. So let's get started reinstalling these transmissions and getting these bolts back into position on the cowl. All right guys, so in getting this ready, what you can see is when we put it up on the cowl, it'll be in an inverted triangle position with the one nut at the bottom, right? So you can't put it in like that. You got to put it in like that. And then just to get the rough alignment, there's this notch here on the shaft. And that notch matches the one that we have at the end of our, whoops, our little bracket came open, right? So we have a little notch right here. And that's how these guys fit together, right? Just like that. So when we go to put this on, again, these are passenger side parts, but same deal. We can see that that little guy moves around as this guy rotates, right? So we know when we first put it in, we kind of want to roughly get it like this as far as the initial starting procedure, with this guy pointing away on the passenger side. So it's going to be pointing towards the outside mirror. So hopefully that'll make sense as we start to put it in. So let's go ahead and get it mounted and finger tightened. All right, so guys, we got this stud all cleaned up here. We're going to come in with our transmission in that position that we just talked about. And actually, yeah, I have to come in from the other side. Hold on, guys. Just stay where you are. I'm going to go to the other side. Sometimes it's helpful to have a helper with these kind of jobs. What we've got is a little bulkhead in the cowl, and it's not big enough to slide the transmission in from that side. So we have to come in from this side in order to clear this little bulkhead here. Right. And then we're going to come back onto that side so that we can get it onto the motor crank arm. And remember, you can see here, hopefully, we want to have the copper pieces. One goes on top of the stud, one goes on the bottom, and then the steel piece is on top. Hopefully you guys can see that that's how we have it. And now we'll go back on the other side and we'll hand tighten. All right, guys, so if we take a look at the arm end of the transmission, we've gotten our bolts started, but we didn't go all the way. And you're going to have to maybe give them a crank with the ratchet because they are self-tapping into the new plastic housing. And you can see we've got the other end snapped onto the stud. It should be in this back area. You've got this piece here, an open area, and then the piece on the end that we're about to attach the last one on. So on this one, you remember I mentioned that this one did not come with any grease from the factory. We're just going to add a little bit of wheel bearing grease inside of here. Not much, just to cut down on the wear. I'm going to slide this one down through this access area so we can get the transmission up and over. And then very similarly, we're going to work it onto the end of the crank arm. There we go. All right, so now what we're going to do, make sure that's on all the way. I'm not sure if it is. All right, so once we're sure that's on, I don't like how it looks. It's kind of crooked. Just going to kind of rotate it around here for a moment, making sure that it's sliding a little bit. We'll probably have to get the wiper turned into a different position here, but we had everything in the resting position. So now we're going to go move these nuts to where the old ones were, snug them up, and see how all that looks. All right, guys, we've gone ahead on these cowl to transmission bolts and torqued them to 62 inch-pounds. That's 6.2 on both sides, all 6 of them. And we put our arms back on, as you can see, so that we can do the alignment of the transmission linkage. We've set the initial nuts in the position of the originals, where the witness marks were on the originals, but we have not torqued these yet. We've just kind of got it set and snug just so that we can test the wipers. So now if we watch down here, we're going to go ahead inside, we're going to turn the wipers on, and we're going to see that everything is traveling okay and not binding. So if everything is the way you want it, you can go ahead and torque those down, and then you're done. If not, you can loosen them up, and that's what I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my wrench, Even though these were probably pretty good, I'll just show you what you can do. You can come down here and loosen these. So we're just going to look at the driver's side. Let's give a couple of turns. 1, 2, should be enough to get this moving again. Maybe one more. And see, now I can adjust this arm to where I want it, right? So maybe I want it to be down here instead. And then you can go try tightening it up, and you can make sure that the travel is where you want it. So it might take you a couple of tries to get this to where you like it, but as soon as you get it to where you like it, then you can come down and tighten those up to the torque specifications that I gave you earlier in the service manual. So that's pretty much it, right, guys? I'm not going to show putting all this stuff back together. It's pretty self-explanatory from what we did before. All right, guys, we got our trim reinstalled all the way around. There's no torque on these screws. As old as these GMT 400 pieces are, if you use the torque, you'd probably crack something, you know, because there's also these little plastic fittings along the middle that those center screws go into. So just snug it up so it's nice and snug. That's all you need to do. Let me show you something on the wiper arms. If you ever get confused about which side was which, at least on the genuine GM ones, right near the end here, stamped into the steel, there's a D and a P to tell you the driver and passenger sides. If we zoom in there so that we can see that. And so that's how you can tell the difference between which side you have. Obviously D is driver and P is passenger. So let's just go ahead and reinstall our arms. Now, since these are new transmissions, you might have to give it some persuasion to get on there with like a small rubber mallet. Right, and then we'll do the same thing on the passenger side. But at this point, guys, we're done. I hope this video helps save you some time, save you some money on how to do this repair yourself and how to solve this problem. The other video I linked at the beginning from a couple of years ago, it could be a good stopgap until you're ready to put down the money for the right kind of parts on these wiper transmissions. But when you're ready, it's the way to go. So we're done. We've aligned it. We've tested it. There's no binding. We've lubed it up. She should be good for another 15, 20 years. If you have some questions, go ahead and leave them below. I'll try to help. If you found this video useful or anything like saving you money or time, please hit that like button. I really appreciate it. It helps with discovery. And as always, thanks for watching.